Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. This video that I'm making right now was completely spur of the moment. I went exploring this morning and then went into work, and I was just like on this productive kick that I wanted to sit down and film. What I am about to tell you is probably top 3 scariest moments ghost hunting. Now before I get into that, I just want to say in this video, the property I talk about and some of the people I talk about related to this property, I will not be going into detail because of how powerful, I guess you could say, these people are. Now, I was 20 or 21 at the time that I did trespass on this property. I'm not proud of it. It is what it is. I've learned from that. Won't do it again. But I'm nervous. I'm already nervous filming this. But yeah, I actually wanted this video to be a sit down with one of my friends, and it's probably not going to happen. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to sit down and film it, put on my big girl panties, and we're going to dive into this. I'm so panicky already, and we're not even started. Back when I was 20 or 21 years old, and I was hanging out with a lot of people that used to go ghost hunting, there was always this house that they referred to as the greenhouse. Now, when I think the greenhouse, I think of like, you know, plants and different things growing in it. It was the greenhouse because it was literally a greenhouse out in the country, covered in ivy, leaves, overgrown with bushes, grass. Nobody ever went back there except my friends. This house was owned by someone very powerful. I don't want to say their specific position, but they were in higher up, I guess, in politics in the city I used to live in. I don't want to give out a lot of information, but basically this guy had the power to, if he would have found out we were trespassing on his property, the one time that we did it, we would have been in very deep trouble. This house was originally owned by a doomsday prepper. He was terrified of everybody. He never really let anybody on his property. He actually had booby traps set around his property and within his house that were set off by police when they actually went in there and this government official had taken over ownership of the house. So there were multiple booby traps found there. The house was in disarray. Even when I was there, I remember it just being crazy to think that somebody actually lived in these conditions. But booby traps everywhere. I'm not sure how this man died. I think it was within his house. I think he did take his own life. I don't want to say for sure. And I can't remember how long ago this was. I want to say he probably passed away about 15 or 20 years ago. So the doomsday prepper had lived in this house, and it was hidden within a field. And after he had passed away, the government official, who I will not say, had taken over the ownership of the house. He kept the house hidden, and I don't know what the plans were with the house. I'm pretty sure the house has since been demolished. From what I hear, I'm not sure. I was really skeptical at first about going to this house just because on the way out there, my friends had told me stories about the doomsday prepping and booby traps, and I was kind of scared. Like, what if they missed one and something happened to one of us or something else scary happened out there? Can you say hello? Where's your other eye? Can you say hello? Say hello. She's not happy. She hates being home. It's okay. I love you. My friends had given me a quick rundown on the house on the way out there. We never took a lot of people with us ghost hunting, especially if it was a location we knew we had to park and walk to. So it was strange tonight that we had taken 2 carloads of people. I remember my car had 5 people, and I think the other one also had 4 or 5. There were quite a lot of us. We had driven off to this house. It was out in the country. I'm not even sure if I could tell you how to get to it now. I feel like if I drove down a couple of country roads, I would find it, but it was very hidden. This house, you pull off the road to the right, and there's a long stone driveway in between woods. The woods were so overgrown. I remember that night it was really muddy. It was hard for any of us to get in and out of our cars and not have mud on our shoes. It was really muddy. When we parked the cars at the end of the lane, there was a field in front of us. And, you know, around the field was the wooded area. We had to walk along the tree line to the back of the house. So this house was completely surrounded by trees. Nobody could really see it except for the farmers that were in that field and, of course, the owners and whoever else knew the house was back there. I don't even think there was a driveway you could get to the house. I don't think there was. And if there was, I didn't see it, and it was probably really overgrown. We get out to this house, and I remember the night being extremely black, and the moon was so bright. It illuminated the whole field. And I can remember the weirdest details about that night. And that's the one I do remember, was that the moon was so bright and it illuminated all of us as we walked along the tree line back to the house. We get back to this house and it was overgrown. There were multiple trees that needed trimming. The grass was up to our knees. There was a fire pit. I remember there being an old shed, and then there was the house. The house was terrifying. Just the way it looked, it was so run down and beat up. It was just scary. And I didn't know what I was going to walk into. I didn't even know if we were going to be able to get into the house, but we found an open door. I have no idea why it wasn't locked, probably because there was nothing left inside. But we found a door and we went in. We got inside of the house and it looked like a horror movie, like just an abandoned house, and you would expect it to be haunted. We walked from room to room. There was no graffiti, actually, probably because nobody knew the house was there except my friends. There was peeling wallpaper. The floors were completely torn up. It just looked like critters had been in there. I remember walking into the kitchen and there were papers all over the floor. Papers all over the floor, newspapers, old pictures. The kitchen was a mess. I remember walking in the living room that was also a mess, and we went upstairs. Now, when we went upstairs, we found a room that actually still had a bed in it, and there was a dead animal in there. It smelled absolutely terrible. We kept walking through the house, but I remember there was another staircase that led up to the attic, but one guy started going up it, and the stairs were creaking so bad he thought that somebody was going to fall through. So we decided not to go that way. We just kind of hung out in the house for a little bit. I can't explain what it's like knowing that somebody used to live in a house and it's just abandoned and there are pictures on the floor. And if there had been more furniture in that house, it almost looked like somebody was still living there. It looked like somebody was looking at the pictures and had them on the floor. There were so many pictures and pieces of paper on this floor. I'm talking thousands, just scattering the kitchen floor. There was gunk on the walls. I don't know what it was. It was probably just nasty old stuff. I'm not saying it's anything crazy or out of the normal. I remember going back outside and we all stood in the backyard. We were all standing by the fire pit, and my friend, one of my guy friends, started having a panic attack. We will call him T for short for his first name. He was younger than me. I want to say he was like 17 at the time. He started having a panic attack and crying and hyperventilating. He didn't want to be near the house anymore, and a couple of our friends actually walked back with him to the other car and they left. So we had cut down to probably 5 or 6 people at this point. So a couple of the guys had left. I remember standing out front of the house or out back of the house. I remember T had mentioned he saw something in a window, and I think that might have been what spooked him. I remember standing outside of this house, and the perfect pane windows, one was broken downstairs. Looking upstairs, it looked like a figure moved where the attic was. I don't know if it was a shadow. I don't know if we ever debunked it or said what it was, but it looked like there was a person standing in the upstairs window. And the longer we stared, time went on and it eventually disappeared. That's all I can tell from my memory. I don't think we ever debunked it or went back into the house after that because we were kind of freaked out at that point. Like, what if there's a squatter? What if somebody's still living here? We hadn't gone up to the attic, so we didn't really know if there was anybody in this house. It was getting late. We just kind of hung out outside. We had the Ouija board. We did play with the Ouija board, and I played it twice, I want to say, with my friend Sadie, where we, said hello, did a session, said goodbye. We did that twice. I also had a couple of guy friends take turns just while some of us walked around and took some pictures and did whatever else. We were at the property for probably about an hour, and one of the guys that I was with, one of the very level-headed guys that never got scared, started freaking out and telling us we needed to leave. I didn't think anything of it at the time because I was like, oh, he's probably just getting scared. Like, it's dark out. We're at an abandoned house. We have no idea what is on this property. And we just we've like brushed it off. We're like, oh, you're just, freaking out for no reason. He said, okay. And we stayed for a little bit longer. I don't think anybody knew we were out there, or I didn't anyways, until we started hearing dogs barking. And this house is out in the middle of nowhere. There are no houses close to it. We heard dogs barking, and I remember seeing lights in the woods coming from the back or from the front of the house, coming straight towards us. I heard it sounded like 2 or 3 dogs barking. All I remember was yelling, "Everybody run!" Everybody took off for our cars, and I can remember this so vividly in my mind. I can remember the mounds of dirt in the field and how it was muddy out. I remember running so hard and I had no idea who was behind us. I had no idea whose dogs they were. The dogs were getting closer. It sounded like they were chasing us. It sounded like somebody from the police department, because this was a government official that owned the house. I don't know if he had cameras. I don't know how anybody would have known we were out there. Our cars were parked so far away from the road. I still have no idea how anybody knew we were out there. But it did sound like police officers that had brought dogs out and were looking for us. We ran through the field. One of my girlfriends was struggling. Her shoe kept falling off. She was freaking out. I remember her starting to cry. I remember thinking, she never cries, something's happening. And then I also remember hearing my boyfriend at the time tell me, if anybody falls, you do not go back for them. You do not go back for them. You run to the car, you start the car, and you leave. He said, do not go back for anybody. We ran through the field, and just when I thought things could not get any worse, and I could not get freaked out any worse, I looked to the left across the field. Along the tree line, there was a black figure. This black figure, I can't tell you how tall it was. It was so far away from me. Looked like 7 or 8 feet tall. And I can still picture it perfectly in my mind to this day, and it terrifies me. It was a black figure, no light, no reflective, anything. Like I said, this night was so bright. The moon was so bright, I could not see what this figure was. Whew. We kept running, and I remember multiple times I looked back and was just watching this figure. I would check it and keep running, check it again, and every time I looked, it was coming from across the field towards us and getting closer. It seemed like this was taking the longest strides to get to us. And I remember thinking, I'm not going to make it back to the car. None of us are going to make it back to the car. Whatever this figure is going to catch up to us. I had no idea what it was. I still don't know what it was. I ran, and I kept running. And all I could think in my mind was, why did I come out here tonight? Why is this happening? What is that? I'm not going to make it back to the car. The time it took this figure to move and to get as close to us as it did, I figured we were done. It was just over. Whatever was going to happen was going to happen. I remember my girlfriend was still crying and running. I was sprinting for the car along the tree line. As soon as I saw my white car sitting in the driveway, I don't even think I opened the door. We had the windows down. I don't remember unlocking the car. I remember my friend diving into the back seat. All the windows were down. He dove into the back seat. I unlocked the car. It was my ex-boyfriend's car. He told me to drive. I got in the driver's seat, and he got in the passenger seat. We crammed 4 people in the back, and I pulled out of that driveway so fast. I don't even know how I made it home. I don't think I cried. My adrenaline was pumping so hard. I was so scared. This was one of those moments in my life that was pure terror and ghost hunting. I was absolutely terrified. I don't know if I was more scared of the dogs I heard barking behind me and potentially consequences from being on property, being on private property and trespassing, or I don't know if I was more scared of whatever this figure was that was right behind us. I I barely remember the rest of the night. I remember pulling out of the driveway and I had pulled out straight backwards. There was no way for me to turn around. I would not have spent any time turning around anyway. I pulled out. I remember driving back into town. We were probably just a couple minutes out of town. My friends were so freaked out. I don't even know if any of us talked about it for several weeks after that. I don't know what we did the rest of the night. Probably just eat and go home and hang out. We were all so shaken up. I thought that something bad was going to happen. I thought we were going to have consequences from playing with the Ouija board. I was also terrified if there were cameras out there. Are we going to get in trouble? Are they going to be able to ID us? I still don't know to this day what that black figure was. I have no idea how the police found out we were out there. I don't even know for sure how this man died. I'm pretty sure I heard he had killed himself in the house. The more I think about it, the more I remember somebody saying that. I have so many unanswered questions about that night. My heart is pounding right now. This is one of the scariest stories I've ever told, and I'm so emotional right now. But I remember getting in touch last year with a couple of my guy friends that had gone that night, and I think they said the house was demolished or they thought it had been demolished. I want to go back out there. I don't know if it's because I'm drawn to it or because I have so many unanswered questions or what, but for months after that, for months after we like finally started talking about the greenhouse again, once we all laid it out on the table and we started talking about it more and more that night, we all saw the same thing. We all heard the same things and experienced the same things. We all reacted to our experiences differently, but we saw the same things. I was fascinated with this house for months. I wanted to go back. Nobody ever wanted to go back. They were all scared. I was still scared, but I wanted to know what was out there, what was going on. How did they know we were out there? What was like so many unanswered questions still to this day. And I know I preach all the time about trespassing, don't trespass. I'm not going to lie though. Part of me, the very immature part of me wants to trespass back on that property, maybe during daylight hours, and see if that house is there. I don't think I will. I know the specific person that owns that property, and I think if I really wanted to, I could probably get in touch with that person and see if he would let me back on his property. But part of me is still drawn to that house and that whole property, everything that happened out there. And it really showed me that there are things you will see ghost hunting, and you don't know what they are. And as much as you want to know, as much as you want answers, you might not have answers. I almost wish that night we would have stayed longer to find out what that black figure was. But I'm also glad we didn't, for the simple fact of not knowing if we could be heard or not. Also for the fact that there were dogs out there chasing us and probably a couple of men. I don't know. I'm in a weird mood now. That is one of the top 3 scariest moments I have ever had ghost hunting. I tell you guys all this because I know you love hearing my stories. I know you guys like hearing, scary stories, ghost hunting stories, stuff like that. I also know I can tell you guys this and nobody's going to think I am a liar because that is the last thing I am. I promise you, all of this happened. Now that I bring this house up, I want to go back. I want to talk to my friends that were there that night. I want to see what they remember, and I want to take a camera and talk to them and see what they can tell me about the house and how they felt. I remember that night, the uncertainty of the whole thing, as well as everybody's emotions being pushed. It was so overwhelming. I'm overwhelmed just thinking about it, feeling like I'm experiencing it all over again. I'm in a really weird mood now. My heart's pounding. My heart is pounding. And I want to go back to that property so bad. I did not think that filming this would make me as emotional as it has. But bringing up old emotions and things that had happened has really made me emotional. That's all I have for today. If I can think of anything else, I will insert it down below in the description box just to kind of give you guys a better idea of anything else that might have happened that night. That is the best memory I have of this house. Those are all of my details that I can pull together, all of the specific little things I can remember to the best of my ability. And I can't believe I just sat down and recorded all of them. This is extremely raw. This is not what people tell you about. People don't tell you how emotional you get bringing up old things that happened and just all those old feelings. But thank you guys for watching. As always, I really appreciate it. I love talking to you guys so much. I'll see you guys all later.